Roll Tide, everybody, and welcome to Monday Quarterback here on WNSP. No slips, no slides, no errors for the University of Alabama. They took care of business. I know there's a lot of Bayou Bengals here in the Mobile area, but you saw what happened. Filleted Tiger steaks for weeks. 42-13 Bama, and it wasn't even that close. I mean, you got a touchdown at the end of the game that was like trash time. But dominant win for Alabama. We're going to talk about that here on Monday Quarterback. We appreciate all of you guys hanging out with us as we do this every Monday here on WNSP. I'm Mick Gillispie, and it is great to talk to you about Alabama football. And I got to tell you, the win for the Tide was a really big one. And we knew going into the game, Alabama, LSU, both of the teams needed a victory to stay alive in the college football playoff race. And even with 12 teams, you knew that this one meant a lot because 3 losses, I think, pretty much eliminates you. Even when you have the brand of Alabama, even when you have the brand of LSU. So Bama's not in, but their chances of getting in are much better. They would have all been but eliminated. Now, you take care of business this week, 1 o'clock kickoff against Mercer, which we'll talk a little about Mercer. They're 9-1 this year, so they're not a bad team in their league. But Mercer, and then you go to Oklahoma, and then you have Auburn in the Iron Bowl, which is always, just the biggest game of the year. I mean, it's the Iron Bowl. Just means more, right? Bama did so many things in the game, though, that led them to a victory, and I think they attacked, to me, the 3 biggest things that they needed to do as a team to win. And if you guys aren't familiar, I am on the Bama Tailgate show, which airs here 9 to 11 every Saturday with none other than St. Paul's quarterback, graduate, and national championship QB, Jake Coker. We do the show from when the team's at home from Tuscaloosa, and then when the team's on the road, a lot of times down at the floor, Bama. But it airs here, and you guys know, I mean, I've talked about it a lot, that I felt like Alabama had to improve in 3 major areas, and not only could they beat LSU, but they could win out if they do it, and they did all 3 things. They had to be better on third down. And were they better on third down? Finally, a lot of people saying, finally, Alabama better on third down, and they were better on third down both sides of the ball. You got to get the stops, but you also got to take care of it yourself. So, as we talk about that game from Saturday, Bama on offense was 10 of 13 on third down. That's really good. I mean, really good. That's the type of game that is going to frustrate you. And they ended up with 420 yards, and they were killing it on the ground. As you remember, 311 yards running. And it was the Milroe show. And we'll talk more about Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback. But and then on defense, LSU, which is a really good 4th down team, was 6 of 14. Now, they were 2 of 3 on 4th, but, Bama made big plays. And I felt like early in the game, LSU had the ball deep in Alabama territory, and I think it was 1st and goal, and Bama stopped them, and they had to kick a field goal, and that changed the momentum of the game. Bama got the ball back, scored another touchdown, and all of a sudden, it's 14-3, and if you're LSU, you're chasing points. So third down efficiency was one of those areas where I felt like Alabama really had to improve. Now, after this game, everybody's probably saying, well, I knew that. But I said that Jalen Milroe had to run the ball and had to run it the way that we've seen him run it before. And he did. 12 carries, 185 on the ground, 4 touchdowns, and had that 72-yard beautiful run for a touchdown. Where was that against Tennessee? Where was that against Vandy? I would have loved to have seen that Milroe against the Volunteers, because the back-to-back years, it's been LSU that has gotten a taste of the running Jalen Milroe. And in the post-game press conference, Kalen DeBoer was like, look, that's his superpower. And I wholeheartedly agree. And that's what we were talking about before the game all week on the Tailgate show, is that the power that he has is he's got a great deep ball. and he is an incredible runner. He's better at running the football than the running backs right now for Alabama. Jam Miller, Richard Young, and Justice Haynes. And I say that for a couple reasons. He's just better at reading blocks, hitting holes, and then, breaking them off for touchdowns. Now, all those guys are talented, but Milroe is the most experienced with the ball, obviously, being a quarterback, but he's special, and he was certainly at his best against LSU. They're probably like, man, I'm glad that the guy's not going to be back most likely next year. We don't have to see him again. They just got toasted in that game by Milroe on the ground. So that was the second thing, the second key for Alabama to win that football game. And the third thing going into that game that I felt like Alabama had to do a better job of was discipline. And honestly, I felt like that was really the most important thing that Bama had to do in the game was find discipline. Now, penalty-wise, it was still 7 penalties, 74 yards for Bama. LSU was 6 of 65. But, part of discipline is not turning the football over. Kane Womack's defense forced 3 more turnovers in the game, a fumble recovery and 2 interceptions, and Bama cashed those in for 3 touchdowns. But not only that, it was the way that the team just looked. Look, you're going to get penalties on the road in a game like that, but I felt like the offensive line looked locked in. They looked confident. In the very beginning of the game, one of the biggest plays, Bama gets a false start, first play. It's loud, Tiger Stadium. People are going crazy. Next play, Milroe gets pushed out of the pocket, rolls out, and then throws a bullet to Ryan Williams, who catches the ball up the sideline, first down, and that seemed to really cool everything off. This team's looked a lot different since Tennessee. They look a lot more focused, and they look a lot more disciplined. Thought that Kalen DeBoer was on the sideline, and he was getting into it a little bit. He was, kind of pushing these guys a little harder than maybe at the beginning of the season. I think that's a great thing for Alabama as well. And we're going to talk Bama recruiting on the show because they have the number 1 recruiting class. There's a guy that is one of their best commitments that may be leaving, and they added 4-star safety yesterday. They flipped a guy from Michigan. So we'll kind of get into that later on in the show. But Kalen DeBoer is playing with, for the most part, Nick Saban's guys, and then some transfers, some guys that came with him, and then, players that were already there and some transfer portal guys. But I mean, this is Nick Saban's roster. There's a ton of talent, but it's also a group that was picked by Saban and his coaches for the things that Saban looked for in players. And DeBoer may have, a different set of criteria than Saban. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, every coach kind of has the things that they're looking for, what they want in a team. And so Coach DeBoer probably felt like when Malachi Moore, had the meltdown at the end of the Vandy game. And look, we were all frustrated. I was sitting here and, we've talked about the discipline, and he's a captain, and we're going to talk more about that. But on the other hand, I mean, if you're at Alabama, you're there, you come back, you're one of the guys that sticks around. The last thing you want is to see the program lose to Vanderbilt. Now, at the time, we didn't realize that this Vanderbilt team is much better than a lot of the other Vanderbilt teams that we've seen over the years. But I think also Alabama was caught a little bit off guard. That Vanderbilt, they figured out at Vanderbilt now. They're kind of coming back down to earth. Bama got taken by surprise. He was upset. And it felt like at that point, if you're DeBoer, your hands are really tied. I mean, are you going to come down on a guy who has stuck with the program, who has been one of the glue guys that you've had? Who knows what happens behind the scenes, but you're trying to keep this group together of players that you didn't recruit for the most part. And he's been one of the guys instrumental in keeping the roster together. So that, and then, the other thing too, and who would have known, but for those of you that watched College Game Day, really one of those tear-jerking stories I don't like watching on game day because I just want to watch football. But I understand, like, in the TV business, you're there to tell stories, and they told a story about Malachi Moore and how he basically was a role model and adopted a little girl that was in his mom's kindergarten class, and she died at 11 years old this year, and just how much he meant to her, how much she meant to him. And it goes to show you the thing that we've all said about him from the beginning is that he's a great guy. But tearjerker, and she died during the season. And who knows, maybe that was something that we're all people, we're all people, and you just never know how things that are external factors come into play when it comes to just doing everything that you're doing, but he's a great guy. He's played excellent football. And since that Tennessee game, the leadership that Alabama has had has really been something. So we'll talk about that and more of Monday Quarterback coming up right after this. Welcome back to Monday Quarterback, hanging out with you guys on WNSP. I'm Mick Gillispie, and it is a pleasure to actually have the quarterback on the show. There he is, Mr. Jake Coker. What's up, dude? Roll Tide.
Man, what a weekend. What a way to get back to where we needed to be. Had to have it, and we found a way. I mean, it was a little different than what we've seen, throughout the year. I felt like really dialed in that run game. And let me tell you, man, when you can run with a quarterback like that, it makes it really, really hard to defend. And, I mean, they couldn't stop it all night, so why take the foot off the pedal?
I don't know. We talked about this all week, and it's not a surprise that for Jalen Milroe to do the things that he is going to do to be successful, that includes running the football. He's got, as Kalen DeBoer said, and we talked about last segment, a superpower when it comes to running the football. It was on display, and this is back-to-back years where he has just ran right over top of the LSU Tigers.
Yeah, when you run with the quarterback, you've got an extra blocker in your running back, and it really makes the defenses, have to really prepare and put more guys down there because, when you're blocking with the running back and you've got a quarterback that's that dynamic on his feet, it puts defenses in a blender. And, you really got to make them commit to stopping the run. That opens up things on the back end. Luckily, we never even really had to throw the ball Saturday night because of just how explosive Jaylen was. I mean, we got movement up front. I mean, a lot of times our running back, who's blocking for Jaylen is hitting guys in the secondary, and there's nobody behind them. I mean, we had numbers all night. The shifts, the motions, getting them in positions where we wanted them to be, and then ran the ball. Kalen DeBoer, Nick Sheridan did a heck of a job scheming up that defense. I mean, look, we knew that LSU, one of their weaknesses was stopping a dual threat quarterback, and especially on those design runs. And I mean, we had plenty of film throughout this week and during the bye week to digest and figure out exactly where we wanted them to be. And it's obvious that Kalen DeBoer and Nick Sheridan put together a plan that just, I mean, we executed it flawlessly. We finally didn't have, a game that was dominated by penalties and really putting us behind the sticks. So we were able to stick to that run game, not get desperate and have to throw the ball and, second and long situations. And so it was just good to see us come out, play dominant football, start to finish. I mean, finally put the nail in the coffin somewhat early. We got turnovers at key times. Looked like our defense was, it looks like we're finally clicking and we're actually playing football rather than thinking about what we had to execute. Now we know what we're doing. We're getting a good feel for what the offense is doing. Our players are playing football now, or at least this week, and just a great thing to see.
I feel like the leadership has done a much better job since the Tennessee game. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I felt like there was just a lot more discipline with this team. There were some penalties, but I felt like the offensive line was in control. When Roberts went down, Alabama just next man up mentality. They did such a great job in this game of handling the LSU Death Valley crowd and everything else that goes into it, the weather elements. And I just hope that they're able to continue to build off of what we saw this game.
Yeah, you see these teams like us, and I think coming off of Georgia, going into Vandy, playing at Vandy, losing that game was a big time humbling experience, and then we lose to Tennessee. And you got to think, just from my experience at Alabama, when you lose a game, the level of transparency in the locker room really shines through. You really find out what everybody's made of. You get to know each other really well. And I think that translates to communicating better and playing better on the field with each other. It becomes you against the world. Everybody is doubting you, and you're the only guys that believe. And they really showed what our potential can be. And I feel like we haven't really stuck to that run first, just dominate them up front and run the ball physically. To the point where, it's like that old stuff, run it and make them like it. We made them like it. The fans are filing out of the stadium in the third quarter. Just great to see us. I'm not going to say we're back because you know how that goes, but man, if we can consistently play like that and not shoot ourselves in the foot, we really got a chance to do something special in the playoff.
Well, you talked about it. I talked about it this week on the Tailgate show, which, by the way, comes on right here, WNSP 9 to 11 every Saturday, where we preview Alabama. Needing to be better on third down, check for that. Needed to be more disciplined, leadership and penalty-wise, check on that. And, and needed to basically get Milroe running and check on that. And when those three things hit, Alabama was really, really explosive in this game, So now I think the next check that Alabama needs is, can they handle success? And as much as I love Jalen Milroe, and when he's not doing good, you guys let me hear about it. At least you do on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel, or Cover Crimson on YouTube, where I'm at a lot. When he's doing well, I like to gloat. And I have to tell you what, the reason why is when I see that stuff, man, when I see him run the ball like that, I know that he's a special talent. But the next thing for me with him, Jake, is just being able to handle success. Didn't do it last year after beating Georgia. Didn't do it this year after beating Georgia. Could be some injuries involved in that. We don't know. But at the same time, he's just got to handle success. This team's going to follow him.
Well, we just got to realize that level of intensity, that level of focus is going to be required from us each week.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to show up and just walk through Vanderbilt. You can't just show up in the SEC and win. Let me tell you, Auburn's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
That is going to be their Super Bowl. Hugh Freeze, he tends to have his best coaching performances against Alabama. That's going to be a tough game. Oklahoma, we're going to Oklahoma. Again, that's going to be another Super Bowl type atmosphere and feeling for Oklahoma. Let's ruin Alabama's season. That's what these teams are going to be playing for, and that's what's going to put the chip on their shoulder. And you watch us play against LSU, and it's like a totally different level. Like I just mentioned, a totally different level of intensity. And if we have that fire each week, then we're playing against, we're possibly beating anybody in the country. I mean, this has been one of the strangest years in terms of just watching teams across the entire college football landscape. You feel like there's just so much inconsistency. There's no dominant team. And after we beat Georgia, I still felt like Georgia was kind of that team that set themselves apart. But you watch them play against Florida, you watch them play against Ole Miss, and they're not there either. Oregon, I know that they're undefeated, but I'm still not. When you get outside of the SEC, teams got to prove it to me. It's kind of like Texas right now. I think they had a lot of hype prior to the Georgia game, but they still haven't proven to me that they're an elite program yet. Historically they're elite, but this year right now I'm not sure if they're there. Oregon kind of falls in that same boat with me. I'm not sure if they're truly just dominant and better than anybody else in the country. We may be, if we went out and we're an 8 seed, I still really like our chances in advancing to the later rounds and possibly the national championship if we can maintain this level of intensity in this thought process that we had Saturday night.
Use the promo code Bama Tailgate, newlifeart.com to get those classic Daniel Moore prints, 20% off when you use that promo code Bama Tailgate. More Monday Quarterback right here on WNSP in Mobile, Alabama, right after this. Back on Monday Quarterback with Jake Coker. I'm Mick Gillispie. You guys may know us from Elephant in the Room. That's our weekly podcast, actually twice a week on covercrimson.com. Maybe you know us from the Bama Tailgate Show, which, by the way, we will be in Tuscaloosa Friday. Swing by and see us 1 to 4 at Innisfree right there in downtown Tuscaloosa. Dare I say it's the Strip, because I guess technically it's not the Strip, but it's not far from the Strip. It's like walking distance from the Strip. So, but that's where we'll be recording. We'll be at Pearl River Resort for the Oklahoma show. That's the following Friday, and then back at Innisfree for the regular season finale, the Iron Bowl. All of those recordings on Friday, and then you can listen to the show if you miss us on Saturday, 9 to 11, as we get you ready for Alabama football. All right, well, let's talk. We kind of got into the game. Alabama on offense was great. The defense was a spectacular again. They were attacking. They forced 3 turnovers. Jahad Campbell was like a machine out there. I mean, it was like he was flying around, and I thought Alabama attacked the ball as well as I've seen them. I mean, this was like a Kevin Steele defense from last year, just the way that they gang tackled.
Yeah, Jahad Campbell to me is the motor for that defense. To me, he seems to be the leader out there. He seems to be the guy that gets everybody going. If he's playing a good game, I think everybody feeds off that. And made a lot of plays Saturday, obviously. But especially you watch that game Saturday, and I alluded to it earlier. These guys, they seem like we came in as a young bunch, and really even the guys who transferred in from other programs, they still hadn't played at Alabama with this group of guys. And under Kane Womack, his verbiage, his defense, his scheme, and I feel like you could feel an adjustment period. You just watched us. We didn't seem like we were playing as fast as we possibly could, that matched the talent level out there. And the last couple of weeks, man, you're starting to see a bunch of guys on defense who, when you're playing early in the season, you're trying to figure out, especially as a young guy who hasn't played game reps, with an offense that you're used to, and you go out there and you're trying to learn exactly how to run your offense or your defense and be in the right spot and communicate the right way and check all the boxes. And then once you get that down, I feel like you're really able to decipher what the other team's doing, and you kind of understand how your coach is calling, certain plays against certain looks, or, against what the other team gives you. And you're starting to see guys really react and understand more than just what they're supposed to do on defense, but how to facilitate what they're supposed to be doing on defense in the most efficient way possible, and really create turnovers through. You see guys, that interception in the end zone, that was one hell of a play. Mm-hmm. Passing the guy off, Nussmeier sees the red zone post over the top, and he tries to throw it, fit it in there, and we make a heck of a play there. There's some other pass breakups where guys are falling off their guy, and it's really hard to see that as a quarterback. You know what they should be doing, and then guys just make great plays, falling off into coverage based on what they think the quarterback's going to do with it. So, the quarterback not necessarily making a terrible decision for LSU, but just great plays on defense that create turnovers and just really make a quarterback second guess where he should be going with the ball.
Deontay Lawson had that incredible interception. One of 3 turnovers for the Alabama defense, and Alabama cashed them all in for points, for TDs. So it was a great day all the way around.
It's something that is something we've been, you and I have been just wearing that point out, that once we get these turnovers, we got to make the most of them. And we finally did. And you see us, beat the number 15 team by 30 points. And that's, you have to take advantage of turnovers. You got to make the most of them, especially in the other team's territory.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. Now, I wanted to ask you, too, Mick Gillispie and Jay Coker here on Monday Quarterback, noon to 1 every Monday through football season on WNSP. When you look at Garrett Nussmeier, you have a lot of respect for him. He's a good quarterback, but Alabama's defense was just able to affect him so much. What were your thoughts on the way that Alabama was able to attack him?
Again, they put him in a bind a lot, and a lot of it to me is scheme. A lot of it also is a lot of instinctual plays out there by a bunch of guys who are really learning how to come along. Just again, really understanding what they're supposed to be doing, and not only what they're doing, but they understand what LSU is trying to do to them. I mean, Deontay Lawson, that interception. He passes that off. He feels that post coming in behind him, and if I'm Nussmeier, I'm throwing that ball all day. I mean, you got to throw it a little higher, but that's just good defense against good offense, and it just made a heck of a play, and then it seemed like on all key downs we were always applying pressure to him, always in the right spot. He's trying to escape. We've got guys waiting on him as he spins out and tries to get out of the pocket. Creating that fumble on that fourth down stop that they had just gotten, a potential momentum swing there. We force a fumble there and get it on the 30-yard line. Just every time that they made headway, we had a counter for it. And, again, there's just not a whole lot of mistakes on our side. And when you can run the ball effectively like that over and over again, you got a quarterback like Jaylen who can run the ball like that. It just doesn't allow for other teams to claw their way back into games.
New rankings.
But yes, but to answer your question, I still think Nussmeier made some great throws out there, but that defense, Kane Womack, that defense, it's hard not to get into a quarterback's head when you're making plays like we made plays on Saturday night.
Oh yeah, look, I'm with you on that, man. You could tell that Alabama was affecting the quarterback position a lot with the pressures, with the blitzes, and they're being very aggressive and they're forcing turnovers, and it's been a good thing. Now, we'll get into some of the other games in the SEC and what's coming up this week next segment, but the top 25 came out. The college, what do they call that? The college football playoff rankings will come out on Tuesday, but right now, Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State is 4 in the AP, Tennessee's 4 in the coaches poll, and then flip those guys. Actually, Tennessee's all the way down at number 6 in the AP and 5. Indiana's 5 in the AP. Notre Dame 8 behind BYU 7, and then there's Alabama at number 9. So Bama's moved up. They moved up a bunch of spots last week. They move up 2 more spots this week. They're all the way up to number 9. They're actually number 9 in both polls. And I feel like they're one of those teams now. They're kind of like this guy that used to ride in NASCAR. He drove the black number 3 car, and he used to just kind of linger in the middle. And then towards the end of the race, you'd turn around, and there he'd be. Second spot. First spot. Winner. And we're kind of pulling that intimidator right now, the Dale Earnhardt. I just feel it when I see what Alabama's doing. They're the most dangerous team in this field, in my opinion.
Well, we've survived, the toughest part of the schedule. Now it's time to just lock in and focus. I mean, this 3-game stretch we're facing right here is the most important stretch of the season. You lose one more, you're most likely out. You should win the rest of your games. If we can just again play like we did Saturday, and again when you run that, when you're running a lot of quarterback runs, you're physical up front. you establish that run game, it's far more easy to be consistent with that style of offense than, throwing it all around the field, 40, 50 times a game. It's just very hard to maintain efficiency and not turn the ball over when you got to play the way, say, LSU does. I mean, look, if not for, a fumble and 2 interceptions, that may be a lot different game. But when you can dominate up front the way that we did on Saturday night, again, it just lends a lot more opportunity to be successful in the long run due to just efficiency of being able to run the ball.
If Alabama wins out, they're going to make the college football playoff. The question is that if they win out, will they make the SEC championship game? And they have a pretty good chance to do that. Texas has the best chance according to this, the percentages. And then Alabama second best, just because they look at Tennessee, who's playing Georgia this week. They got them losing. And then all of a sudden, you just win your way right in. If Alabama makes the SEC championship game again this year, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I mean, that's always a goal, right? And I don't know how this year, if you make the SEC championship and lose, I don't know how you penalize them by taking them out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would discourage a lot of people from. It's hard to even imagine that making it to the SEC championship could hurt you, right? I mean, I hate that thought of penalizing a team, because they had such a good SEC schedule and performance. You put them in that SEC championship and they, are penalized, lose, don't make it to the playoff. That's a tough way to go. I mean, as I sit here and I think about it, I'm like, man, maybe it's a good thing if we just went out and go to the playoff.
It is a tough question.
But I hate to even, have that thought process. I mean, it just, I hate to have the thought process of saying, man, we might be better off not going, but that's just a fact. I mean, it's crazy that we're here now. But you look around at the other conferences and the other teams. I mean, the SEC to me is far and away the best conference. With a 12-team playoff, the 2 teams in the SEC championship have to go.
Yeah, well, if you get the opportunity to win a championship, it's a championship. And it was a championship last year. You get a ring for it. And for the rest of your life, you're a champion. You were on the 2014 SEC championship team at Alabama. You also won the national championship in 2015. But those teams are brought back. You never forget those championships. They do mean something. And that's what I think, too. But it could cost Alabama as far as, health. And if you lose, maybe being eliminated. All right, one more segment of Monday Quarterback. We're going to look at the games that are going to take place around the SEC and wrap things up right here on WNSP right after this. Final segment of Monday Quarterback. And let me tell you guys that we are proudly brought to you by the gang over at Sticks Tractor and Tree Service over there in Robertsdale. Hunter and his crew will take care of you, whether you're talking about land clearing, excavating, mulching, tractor work, demolition, site prep, all of that stuff. I needed some help. I had a bunch of these water oaks in my yard. I guess I got freaked out because of the hurricanes that are always brewing around, and I just wanted it out. And one of them was a tree that my deck was built around, and I just had a bad feeling about this tree. Hunter and his gang came in. They gave me a one price for all of the trees out of the yard. They did a great job. Nothing fell on my house. They cleaned up. The price was fantastic. 251-367-1081. And then the tree in my deck that I worried about, I should have been worried. The entire tree was hollow. And so, and I have a reminder of that because now I have a hollow stump in the middle of my deck until I figure out what I want to do with it. It actually looks pretty artsy, but I'm glad it's not a 75-foot tree leaning over my house. But the gang over at Sticks Tractor and Tree, Hunter and those guys, look them up. You'll definitely get a great price if you need some help in that area. All right, Jake Coker, Mick Gillispie here on WNSP. Jake, looking at the games from this past week, and then I want you to give me some comments on the ones for this weekend. But Ole Miss beat Georgia 28-10. That makes it, 2 losses for both of those teams. Texas hammered Florida. Tennessee got by Mississippi State. Oklahoma lost to Missouri. They're terrible. 1-5 in the SEC. And then Vanderbilt was beaten by South Carolina. South Carolina is a pretty good team, 6-3, 4-3 in the SEC, and a team that you got to watch out for. So that sets us up for this week in the SEC. I'm going to run through these games, and you give me your opinion. And I know you're really excited about some of these matchups. 11 o'clock this Saturday, Texas at Arkansas. This could be a dangerous game for Texas. Arkansas did beat Tennessee. They're a 16.5-point favorite. The over-under is 57.5. The Hogs a home dog.
Yeah, hey man, you never know with Arkansas. They're always, if there's one constant with Arkansas, they're going to play physical. That's what Sam Pittman brings to the table. They've been doing that for years, but he continues that tradition. Arkansas is going to play hard. Texas. Texas is one of those teams to me. Again, they don't have my respect yet. Brand new to the SEC, have gotten one of the easier SEC schedules. Good draw for them. I'm guessing that was part of the deal when they came in this year. But I'm just not there with Texas yet. I'm trying to find that line, but I think it's around 10. No, it's 15. Yeah,
16.5.
Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go with Arkansas on that one. Even if I got beat on that, I'd eat it because Texas they wore Florida out this week, but Florida's down to their third string quarterback. I mean, they're limping around and just not playing as good as they possibly could. So I'm going with Arkansas this week. Again, just not ready to hand Texas any kind of trophy yet.
Auburn's hosting Louisiana Monroe. Murray State is at Kentucky. Mercer's at Alabama. We'll talk about that one in a second. Mercer's 9-1, by the way. Interesting. LSU's at Florida, and that's only a 4.5-point spread. The Tigers are favored on the road. You got Missouri at South Carolina, but let's talk about Tennessee at Georgia because this one becomes a really important game in the conference. Georgia looking for a bounce back after not having things come together for them. At Ole Miss, it's a 9.5-point spread, 49.5 is the over-under. Georgia, the home favorite.
Tennessee, Tennessee's another one of those teams where I know they're ranked fairly high. But there's a lot of weaknesses there. They're not very consistent. If I've got to bet on one or the other, I'm taking Georgia. I just like their consistency more. Again, I know they just lost to Ole Miss, but Ole Miss is kind of picking it up too. They're looking a lot better than what we may have thought they would be. At this point, I think everybody had higher hopes for Ole Miss than what we've seen this year, but. Proved that, again, another team that proved Saturday that they can show up and play with anybody as long as they do indeed show up. But Tennessee, Georgia, I got to go with Georgia on that. Coming off a loss, they're going to be fired up, playing with their hair on fire. So you got to go with Georgia in that one, in my opinion. And it's a 9-point line. Those top 10 matchups with lines that are on that 10-point threshold, I tend to go with that favorite. Just doesn't, honestly, the public's probably all over Tennessee right now, and I just got to think Georgia.
Bama at home taking on Mercer. Mercer's 9-1 on the season. Now they obviously aren't playing the level of competition that they will be in Tuscaloosa, but when you're 9-1, I mean, that means you've only lost one game, and that one game was a loss to Samford. So they haven't beaten a team in the state of Alabama, but they beat Presbyterian, Bethune-Cookman, Chattanooga, the Citadel, Wofford, Princeton, Western Carolina, ETSU, and VMI. So, they're beating the teams on their schedule, but this is going to be a big jump, 1 o'clock in Tuscaloosa. Alabama's got a 99.9% chance to win this football game.
Hey, man, hopefully we've learned our lesson, with that Vandy loss. And we can all say Vandy is a better football team. They're honestly, they're a pretty strong football team. But, at Alabama, I don't know if it's more embarrassing to lose at Vandy or in Tuscaloosa against Vandy. Hopefully that taught us that we can't look past anybody.
Right.
It was a big game Saturday, but we got to show up. We got to play to a standard, and it can't be based off who we're playing. I'm taking Alabama in this one, but I hope that we've matured and understand the importance of each Saturday and what that means to us in the future. We don't show up, we can get beat by anybody. So I think we've learned our lesson. I think we show up. I think we cover.
All right, that does it for the show. Alabama and Mercer, you guys can listen to the Tailgate Show, the Bama Tailgate Show, right here on WNSP, 9 to 11 this Saturday. If you're going to Tuscaloosa, we record the show Friday, Innisfree 1 to 4. For Jake Coker, I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. And until next week, or until Saturday, roll Tide.
Roll Tide.